4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. This is
UniversalExports.co.
And now, your host.
Yes, it sure is, and good morning, the listener. Wow, today do we have heaps of fine and fantastic things to feed those little grey cells. By the end of this episode, you should be full of it, just like me. We launch into an amazing piece of interplanetary audio before sliding gently into a mainly cultural menu today. Coffee, champagne, and serviettes, or napkins, is it? So let's get going.
Space Talk, Space Talk, Space Talk.
Sounds of Mars. NASA's InSight lander continues to amaze. This is a real first. Recordings of actual natural sounds from another planet. The InSight lander was not specifically equipped to detect sounds, but it does have a pair of highly sensitive sensor packages presently sitting atop its deck awaiting deployment. These are an air pressure sensor that collects meteorological data and the seismic experiment for interior structure for detecting Marsquakes. InSight set down on Mars on December 26, 2018. That's last year, if you're up with me now. On board the lander, its highly sensitive seismometer unexpectedly detected vibrations caused by Martian wind. The northwest wind blowing at 16 to 24 kilometres per hour was blowing across the solar panels, creating small movements, causing the panels to act similarly to a crude microphone. The recorded sounds you hear here are a very low pitch. This audio has been pitched up 2 octaves. A second instrument on board, used for recording air pressure, also recorded the Martian winds. This data has been sped up by increasing the frequency by 100 times. Eventually, the sensor will move off the lander to a position on the ground where it will look for vibrations deep within the planet. Remember, you heard it here first. The sounds of Mars passing wind. Here it comes again. I can just smell that coffee. Latte, espresso, cappuccino. There are many different types of coffee today. We'll explain those differences, so no more getting confused at your local cafe. Simply, the main differences between them all are the proportions of espresso, steamed milk and foam within the cup. But in essence, every espresso-based drink shares the same 3 ingredients. These are the most common, starting with the base, of course, the espresso or short black. It's the foundation and most important part of espresso-based coffee drink. 1 shot of espresso in an espresso cup. Next is doppio, which is a double espresso. 2 espresso shots in 1 cup. Ah, lovely. Now here comes a short macchiato. This is similar to an espresso, but with a dollop of steamed milk and foam to mellow the harsher taste of an espresso. Many baristas in different countries make short macchiatos differently. However, the traditional way of making a short macchiato is 1 shot of espresso in a short glass or espresso cup, a dollop of steamed milk and foam placed on top of the espresso. Moving up, here we come to a long macchiato. Much the same as a short macchiato, but with a double shot of espresso. The same rule of thirds applies in the traditionally made long macchiato. 2 shots of espresso in a tumbler glass or cup, a dollop of steamed milk and foam placed on top of the espresso. Now for a ristretto. A ristretto is an espresso shot that is extracted with the same amount of coffee but half the amount of water. The end result is a more concentrated and darker espresso extraction. Now the long black, or Americano. Made from hot water with an espresso shot extracted on top of the hot water. Fill a cup with 2/3 full of hot water, extract 1 shot of espresso over the hot water. Cafe latte. A cafe latte is an espresso-based drink with steamed milk and microfoam added to the coffee. This coffee is much sweeter compared to an espresso due to the steamed milk. Extract 1 shot of espresso into a tumbler glass. Add steamed milk, 1 centimetre of microfoam on top, and there you have it. In the USA, it is common to use a cup instead of a tumbler glass for a latte. Cappuccino. A cappuccino is similar to a latte. However, the key difference between a latte and cappuccino is that a cappuccino has more foam and chocolate placed on top of the drink. Further, a cappuccino is made in a cup rather than a tumbler or a glass. Extract 1 shot of espresso into a cup, add steamed milk, add 2 or 3 centimetres of microfoam on top of the steamed milk, sprinkle chocolate on top of the coffee, and the foam needs to draw a circle on top to mimic the monk's haircut. Cappuccino was created by a monk. Flat white. A flat white is a coffee you'll probably find everywhere. It's made the same as a cappuccino, except it does not have any foam or chocolate on top. It is a long black with about 1 centimetre of unfrothed milk on top, like a cup of tea with milk, but coffee instead. Now we get into some little ones. A piccolo latte is a cafe latte made in an espresso cup. This means it has a very strong but mellowed down espresso taste thanks to the steamed milk and microfoam within it. There are 2 ways of making a piccolo latte, with either 1 espresso shot or 1 ristretto shot. Mocha. A mocha is a mix between a cappuccino and a hot chocolate. It is made by mixing chocolate powder with an espresso shot and then adding steamed milk and microfoam. Now for an affogato. An affogato is a simple dessert coffee that I think is a real treat. It is made by placing 1 big scoop of vanilla ice cream or 1 very big scoop of vanilla ice cream within a single or double shot of espresso. Wow. After all that, it'll take a week for my blood pressure to get back to normal.
Wow.
Well, nothing quite gets the attention of a popping champagne cork. And that one was done with style. And of course, being a listener to this station, you know we are all about style. In fact, my motto has always been, it doesn't matter what you do as long as you do it with style. But getting back to this particular popping, that bottle was opened by the method of Sabrage. Sabrage is a technique for opening a champagne bottle with a sabre used for ceremonial occasions. The wielder slides the sabre along the body of the bottle to break the top of the neck away, leave the neck of the bottle opened and ready to pour. The force of the blunt side of the blade hitting the lip breaks the glass to separate the collar from the neck of the bottle. One does not use the sharp side of the blade. The cork and collar remain together after separating from the neck. The technique became popular in France when the army of Napoleon visited many of the aristocratic domains. It was just after the French Revolution, and the sabre was the weapon of choice of Napoleon's light cavalry, the hussars. Napoleon's spectacular victories across all Europe gave them plenty of reason to celebrate. During these parties, the cavalry would open the champagne with their sabres. It was Napoleon who said, "Champagne. In victory one deserves it, and in defeat one needs it." He actually did it in French. There are many stories about this tradition. One of the more spirited tales is that of Madame Clicquot, who had inherited her husband's small champagne house at the age of 27. She used to entertain Napoleon's officers in her vineyard. And as they rode off in the early morning with their complimentary bottle of champagne, they would open it with their sabre to impress this rich young widow. It is possible to sabrage a champagne bottle with just about anything, from a wine glass stem to an iPhone. There is a proper technique and best done with a very chilled bottle. But whatever you use, do it with style. You can see this presenter in actual Sabrage mode on my YouTube channel, PB The Vlogs. That is PB The Vlogs. Oh, by the way, the only time a champagne bottle should pop on opening is by this Sabrage technique. At all other times, the cork should be gently teased out until it opens with the sigh of a contented woman. When was the last time you heard that sound? Keeping on our theme of culture and style, what about the great napkin versus serviette debate? Lee from the Camberwell Petanque Club was very interested to hear about this. And most of this information comes from my friend Grant Harold, the royal butler. One thing that has caused a great discussion over the 20th century is the simple question, what is the correct term, napkin or serviette? What exactly is a napkin and a serviette? Well, before we go into the correct term, let's solve the issue as to exactly what they are. Napkins, serviettes or face cloths are pieces of cloths used in dining situations for wiping the mouth and fingers during the meal. The word napkin comes from the French word nappe, which is a cloth for covering a table. Before we use the cloth we have today, the Romans would use a lump of dough or bread to wipe their hands. The Romans then had a cloth which was pocket-sized and would be carried by them, with which they would use to mop their brow and was called a sudaria. They also had another cloth called the mappe, which is made in medium and large lengths. This went over the edge of the sofa as a protection for the food they took in a reclining position. The fabric was also used to blot the lips. The mappe was used to take away leftovers, so in theory, the first ever doggy bag. During the Middle Ages, the napkin disappeared and you would wipe your hands with whatever came to hand. It was not long until cloths began to be laid on the table, of which there were 3. These cloths were of certain length, and one was used to wipe your hands and mouth, and this evolved to a piece of fabric draped over the arm of the servant. By the 16th century, napkins began to be made in different sizes for different events. In the 17th century, the napkin was 35 inches wide and 45 long. However, when forks became part of fine dining, the napkin reduced in size as diners were less messy thanks to the use of knives and forks together. The French court had codes of etiquette for the aristocracy, which include how to use a napkin, when to use it, and finally how far to unfold it in their lap. A French treatise dating from 1729 stated that it is ungentlemanly to use a napkin for wiping the face or scraping the teeth, and a most vulgar error to wipe one's nose with it. This, of course, is very much still the rule for using a napkin to this day. In 1740, tablecloths were made with matching napkins. Dining napkins came from 18 by 18 inches up to 27 by 27. Now, to a serviette, which is also a piece of cloth or paper, and again similar to a napkin, but this was used for meals where you stand up, similar to cocktail napkins. The Chinese are believed to have used paper napkins in 2 BC. A serviette is an old French word meaning to serve. In 1954, Nancy Mitford wrote in her essay on the English aristocracy to say that serviette was not correct and the right term is napkin. This, of course, is a debate that continues, as some people mistakenly think that a paper napkin is a serviette, which of course is incorrect, as a napkin is made from paper as well as cloth. As mentioned, napkin means cloth, which is exactly what we use to this very day for formal meals. Paper napkins tend to be used for cocktail receptions and similar. When it comes to using a napkin, it is opened and placed on the lap. However, on occasions, ladies and gentlemen will place it on their chest below the neck to protect the clothes. Napkins only get placed on the table once when the meal is finished. However, if you need to leave the table during the meal, then the napkin is placed on the chair. Still unsure? This poll result might help. 78% went for the term napkin, 22% went for the term serviette. Thank you for listening. Subscribe, call back, do whatever you need to do, but please come back again. I'd love to have your company. Signing off, universalexports.co.
Bye-bye.